I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Hey, what's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like Live. Again, I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your host, or for this one, your presenter. Please make sure you're signed up at imixwhatilike.org and following at imixwhatilike for all your relevant social media so that you don't miss a whole bunch of stuff that I and my colleagues and comrades are doing across multimedia and beyond just these live streams. And as I keep wanting to announce, we're just not able to just quite yet. There is going to be an expanding project. So if you can become a member at the YouTube channel and become a monthly supporter, that money will be greatly helpful in building this expansive media collaborative project that I'm very excited about and is soon coming. We just, putting it together. So, and again, shout out to those who are joining through Instagram. I did, throw the phone up over there, although, I do think it's better. You get better quality, everything going through the other platforms or just looking through at imixwhatilike.org. But I wanted to talk today. Well, there's a number of things, but obviously, please come back today if you can at 1 o'clock Eastern for something that I'm very excited about, a conversation with Dr. Sean Utsi about his work ranging from Black psychology to Black Wall Street and just Africana studies in general, the chair of African American studies at VCU, long times, Jegna to me and particularly some of my comrades, and just all around good brothers, done a lot of very interesting and strong work that excited to talk about. So that's 1 o'clock. Please come back for that. Yeah, we are booking shows. We are adding them. I'm constantly reaching out to people, and it's just a matter of when they respond and when they can do it. So we have a lot of things coming up, and in fact, I would just quickly want to encourage people again. The easiest way for everything is just through imixwhatilike.org, but at least through the I Mix What I Like YouTube channel. And again, there's going to be an announcement about that coming up as well. But as you can see here, I'll just quickly show you before we get into this discussion today. Let's see. We have Dr. Sean Utsi later today. We have just got Najma Nuruddin signed up, the brilliant filmmaker who I'm excited about selfishly for other reasons, primarily the fact that she put my daughters in their first film. So I'm excited to have her on to talk about that and all of her really incredible good work now coming out of Baltimore. We did just have a great conversation with Norman Finkelstein and Dr. Kemet Shockley these last couple of days, but we have and brother Nnamdi Lumumba from the Ujima People's Progress Party. So definitely check those out. And then we have Dr. Sut Jali coming up, one of my favorite media scholars. I'm very excited to talk with him about that. And then Dr. Mark Blythe is going to come on to talk more about this economic stuff, to maybe check some of what we're going to talk about today. And as well, specifically to see, because I've asked him to review my claim that I think he may have offered a practical solution to my myth of buying power, broad, vague solution of redistributing the GDP. And I think he has a very practical solution for addressing that. So, but there's other stuff, other people we're still working to sign up. We just haven't gotten all the dates. In fact, we do. Enoch, the Seventh Prophet, hip hop, legend really out of DC is coming up. There's another stuff that I haven't fully. Anyway, so definitely thank you, Sister Leah, and trying to be in full effect. Peace, Jadorian. Thank you as well for being a member. And of course, peace to Ricky Ryan, who is not only a member here, Black Alliance for Peace. We're endeavoring to get her on as a guest as well. And peace to Africans Arise. Okay, so let's check this out. So what I had intended to do was to reach out. The people whose works I'm going to build off of today are people I had endeavored to reach out to have on as guests, but for a number of different reasons or whatever reasons, we haven't been able to work that out in a timely fashion. And in part, one, as I'll explain in a moment, one of the sources I'm borrowing from or working from, they don't do interviews at all. They have said that they want to just stay focused on their work. And to do that, they don't want to do interviews at all, which on the one hand I can appreciate, but on the other hand, it's frustrating because it would be helpful to have them help us walk through it. So, but anyway, let's see what we can do here, because there's a couple things I've been noticing around this GameStop story that both fit nicely within the work that I've been monitoring around the myth of black buying power, but also just in general, in terms of the way media cover economic issues, and of course the way the financial and economic system, and which is really also a social system, works, and of course does not work for primarily Black people, African descendants, but most people just in general. So I want to start with so just this quick recap. So I know a lot of you have been discussing this. A lot of you, and at least some of you, I know more about this, and certainly than I do. But essentially, over the last few days, a couple weeks in particular, because I think it actually started. Well, the push started a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, centering around GameStop, the brick and mortar, game store. Others were involved. I think Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly said the other day that even Bed Bath & Beyond was involved. AMC, the theater company, was involved. But primarily, it centers around GameStop and the situation where some big-time hedge funds and the market makers, as they're called, on Wall Street were betting that GameStop was going to collapse, and which, I mean, there is a logic to it. It's a brick and mortar store. A lot of the games are, hard copy. When the trend is streaming, there's a number of different reasons. But their thing was they're going to short or bet that. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, watch The Big Short. I don't generally recommend Hollywood or films as to explain the real world, but to the extent that some can, The Big Short, I think, does a pretty good job of explaining how this stuff works. But essentially, the short of it is that when you take a short on the stock, you bet that it's going to go down. And we can talk a little bit about the mechanics of that, which I've been trying to learn more about myself. But essentially, you borrow from the big market makers stock at a lower price. Then you quickly at its current price, you quickly sell it, and then you bet that the stock is going to drop. And when it drops, you buy it at the lower price, return the stock you've borrowed, or sell the stock that you've borrowed back at give back this original stock that you borrowed, and then you sell the stock at the higher price, or at the lower price, and then the difference. I just messed that up. But essentially, you're borrowing stock, selling it at its current price, betting it's going to go down. If the stock value goes down, then you get return the stock you've borrowed, and you make money on the difference. If it goes up, because people, like in the subreddits, whatever, are buying up the stock and increasing the stock value, then you can lose infinitely, and as some have, they've lost billions of dollars. So what has ended up happening was there's been a lot of reporting and popular discussion of this as, the people striking back, David getting back at Goliath, watching a couple hedge funds lose billions of dollars, showing the weakness of the financial system. Certainly some of us have had fun watching some of the mainstream press pundits try to collapse over themselves, trying to either blame this on another Russiagate theory, that a conspiracy that the Russians were behind this, or that new regulation needs to be brought in now because we can't have quote unquote retail investors messing up the system that is designed specifically only to work for the most elite market makers. And and some of us sort of just sitting back with our popcorn and tea, enjoying a good laugh. But there are a couple pieces that have been missing in some of this discussion that I wanted to try to fill in with some guests, but we haven't been able to work it out. So I want to start with one of them is from this piece. And I've been reading a number of catching up to as much of his work as I can actually lately, because it's dope and important. And then of course there it is. So and it is there's a number of, he's got a whole increasing catalog, expanding catalog of good stuff here. But this guy here, Edward Onzuego, I think I might be mispronouncing that, Ongueso, Edward Ongueso Jr. Robinhood's customers are hedge funds like Citadel. Its users are the product. And from this story, oh, and by the way, before this is the point, because even today, and this is the one I wanted to show actually before we get to that one, even today, in today's Washington Post, there is a story about this that is well, the context of it is Elon Musk getting into this discussion with the CEO of the Robinhood trading platform that is involved in all of this. But this video here, if you watch it, I'm not going to play it. It's kind of choppy and short. The quality isn't what you would think would be coming from something the Washington Post and AOC is involved in. But this live stream that AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was involved in, where she's talking to some folks about the GameStop stuff, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because she, in this story, are actually parroting a lot of what I think are some of the mythological elements of the coverage of this story. That again, it is a David versus Goliath. That she was sort of in this video. She's that's again out published just today, extolling the virtues of extolling the benefits rather, or the positive potential of these retail or small investors, using small amounts of relatively small amounts of individual investments to collectively amass this move to raise the stock and crush the attempts of hedge funds and people who are shorting stock. In other words, betting that companies are going to fail, betting that people are going to lose their jobs, betting that industries are going to collapse, and benefiting from it as it happens. Striking back against those kind of vultures who have been making money and finding ways to abuse, further exploiting, so on and so on and so forth. But of course, what is left out of this discussion is, again, even though there is an allusion to a discussion of correcting our economic system, there is, of course, no overt critique of capitalism as an economy. There is certainly no promotion of an alternative, more redistributionist form of both wealth creation and wealth distribution, or wealth definition even. None of that. It's again more just to try to say, look, we just need a little bit of regulation. We can, the system, it's almost as if to say the system in as it is currently constructed has minor flaws, but even as this GameStop issue shows the potential for the greatness of capitalism to allow the little guy to win if the little guy gets organized. And then again, that's part of the mythology that I think is misunderstood here. And then the other part of the myth, more specifically, as I start to get more into the points I wanted to get into here with these articles, is that they depict the main culprit, I would want to say, or the individual culprit that they're trying to pin this on, as just some silly guy under the nickname Roaring Kitty, who sets up in his basement and is the little guy championing and messing up the big guys. All right, and that's so there again. So just to clarify and recap very quickly, there's a couple of myths that I'm trying to address here. One, the broader myths about what capitalism can be and is. Then the mythology specifically around this GameStop stuff being the little guy versus the big guy, and just some little guy in the basement leading this movement online that shows the power of the internet to overthrow our overlords. And again, anyway, so it's just very carefully constructed, I think, or attempts to carefully reconstruct the more dominant and acceptable narrative, so that again, we don't end up raising questions about the system that we're stuck in that should be raised on constantly. All right. So if we just I put the links to these pieces in the YouTube description, and of course they'll be in the post at imixwhatilike.org. So you can feel free to check me on all this. I certainly don't claim to be an expert, but as somebody who tries to track this stuff historically for the myth of buying power work, I just note some of these things, and again, hopefully we can get Ed on. He had initially said he was going to come on, but we weren't able to get a schedule set. So anyway, I'm happy to be checked on any of this if I've gotten any of this wrong or misinterpreted it. But what he says here is that so first, quote in this piece that I have up here: while the GameStop stock saga has so far largely been seen as a case of the little guy, as far as day traders with money can be considered the little guy, getting back at big financial players, the reality is more complicated. The financial system has many moving parts, and the day traders on Robinhood, who imagine themselves as literal Robin Hoods, are really just grist for a larger mill. It's worth noting here that whatever profits a few day traders end up realizing on GameStop, the huge firms that own the majority of GameStop stock will likely come out on top. He continues, for the past few years, Robinhood has spent a great deal of energy marketing itself as born out of the Occupy Wall Street movement and champions a mission to democratize finance for all. Imagine that. Even that phrase, democratizing finance, is an oxymoron. But anyway, he continues. The reality, however, is that this rhetoric distracts from the fact that it's actually helping preserve the status quo, namely by turning its customers, but more so its orders, into products. The secret to Robinhood's success and profitability is simple: payment for order flow. To ensure trades are commission-free, trades are sold to market makers or large firms such as Citadel. Citadel Securities is Robinhood's largest customer. Affiliate Citadel LLC tried to bail out Melvin Capital after its GameStop shorts cost it billions. Market makers execute these trades, sometimes at inferior rates, and can use their privileged position to place themselves in the middle and make a profit. And this is something that is very interesting, and I would have wanted to talk with Edward, and still would, much more about, because what he's pointing to here is much like media work, and this was one of the connections that came clear for me. We are, whenever, just as they talk about with Robinhood and trading platforms, whenever the service is free, you are the product. So when you can go online for free, when you can watch YouTube streams for free, when you can, read an article for free, whatever, and oftentimes even when you've paid for access to it, you are still the product being traded. It used to be talked about, the media companies were selling eyeballs or selling their consumers to advertisers. Advertisers basically, it's how many eyeballs, how many ear holes, how much consciousness are you transferring over as a media outlet to advertisers? That's how the sort of might want to call it political economy of media work, but the sort of the economy of media work. We are the product. So when you're listening to the radio and you hear a commercial, the product in the commercial is not the product. You, as the consumer, are the product at that moment, being sold by the media outlet you're listening to or watching, to the ad buyer or the company selling the product, or selling the nominal product, but in fact you are that product being sold. So what Onzuego is pointing to very importantly here is that Robinhood, again, people are assuming that because I can go in and I can, I can make a trade $5, $10, $25 or $100, I can get involved, that somehow I can get rich or I can make money, because we've heard some success stories, quote unquote, of people paying off student loans, and people, we got to go check out, we should be watching it all the time, but Jackie Luqman's The People's Prophetess with Dr. CBS the other day, getting into this. I think they did a brilliant job with making these points in particular, that we think we're people are encouraged to believe that they're participating in something, when in reality, one, importantly, the mythology that capitalism and participation in this can be beneficial, so that we hear the stories of somebody getting, paying off a student loan debt or something, and we get excited and think, we can even do it ourselves. One of the Rap Battle League channels that I happen to pay attention to, the brother that runs that did an impromptu live stream the other day where he was basically asking his Rap Battle League audience if he should get involved in it. Like he was saying, am I missing out on a chance to get rich? And I'm sitting there wanting to say, this is the point. Like, this is the part of the mythology that capitalism and all this promotion holds, that we can get involved, that we can do something, that even the little guy can get in and make money, whether it's in this or Bitcoin or something else. And it's I think, well, as they point out too, and Edward Onzuego points out, is a lot more complicated than that, because what is actually happening in this case, just as I was saying with the media comparison, Robinhood was basically selling the retail or smaller investors to the market makers, because what Robinhood is really doing is borrowing the stock that is already owned by these big market makers, and then they sell it as sort of a loan to these micro or retail investors. And what Edward and others, and I'll show you in another case, what it allows for is not only for more money to be brought into the pool that is being gambled and reinvested and turned into wealth for the more wealthy owners of all of this processes, but it gives the market makers, the big timers, a heads up, because they become the so-called middlemen in the trade. Because when if I had a Robinhood account or something like that, which I don't, but if I did, and I buy a stock, what's really happening is I'm paying for a piece of what Robinhood is borrowing from someone else to give to me, and then selling to those bigger market makers. And in that interim, there's even that movie. What's that movie with that dude who played, what's his name? Jesse something, that played the Facebook dude. He did a movie, a lesser known movie about this, where, because there's these micro trades are happening, in fact, Noam Chomsky years ago called it a virtual parliament that actually rules the world through their investments that are happening by the nanosecond, with increasingly high-powered technologies that allow investing to happen, faster than the blink of an eye. And Jesse, what's his last name? He was in this movie trying to literally move his servers closer to Wall Street to get to be able to get an advantage getting his investments in. And what Ed is pointing out to in this piece here, and several of these pieces, I'm only talking about one of them, is that by using these Robinhoods and whatever's that encourage this retail investment, the market makers, the big boys, not only bring in more pools of money they can play with, and I think more importantly, create the myth of inclusion in all of this and democratizing finance, which is silly as a concept. But they are able to use both the information of the trades. In other words, they can say, well, and I'll show you this in a second. If we see people making all of these trades, then we can bet against them. And they're the middlemen, so they're seeing it happen before it posts. So when I buy a stock through Robinhood, they're selling me something they're borrowing from somebody else, and in the process, of that transfer, so-called, the owner of the stock becomes the middleman and can say, well, Jared and others are investing in a certain way, and they're silly. They call it dumb money because we're just retail investors. We don't know what we're doing. They don't know what they're talking about, so we'll bet against what they're doing and make more money. Or they'll say maybe they're on a trend and we can use that information to our advantage, or use it to our advantage in ways I don't even know about, how these people, But the point is, the idea that little people, that the Davids are attacking Goliath this way, is part of the mythology here that these folks are trying to expose. Jesse Eisenberg, right from is that his last name? Eisenberg from the Social Network? Yeah. Thanks for that. Anyway, all right. So with that, let me just show you this one other piece that I wanted to show you, because these are the folks that I've really become much more attuned to lately, because this website called Wall Street on Parade, and I don't remember honestly who I got this from, so I can't properly credit it, unfortunately. Sorry about that, and I apologize for that. But I encourage people to check out and these are the folks, Pam and Russ Martins. I invited them to come on because I've been checking out their work a lot lately. But they don't do interviews. So that's unfortunate on some level, but we'll try to see if we can make some work out of it. So what they talk about in this article is the reality about this guy, Roaring Kitty, that people are wanting to champion as the little guy that sparked this thing against Goliath. And there's a number of interesting things. So I'm not going to read obviously the whole thing. The link is in the description, but just some of it here. And it came out on the 30th. So what is that? 2 days ago. Quote, yesterday evening, CNN's Aaron Burnett told millions of viewers that it was amateur traders who had taken on the powerful Wall Street hedge funds to pump up the share price of GameStop. The New York Post also called Keith Gill, the man who initiated the frenzy in GameStop shares, an amateur investor. This characterization of Gill fits with the broader mainstream media narrative that this is an exciting David versus Goliath story. Unfortunately, the facts keep getting in the way of that narrative. Wall Street on Parade has confirmed that Keith Patrick Gill, a man holding highly sophisticated licenses to trade and supervise others on Wall Street, is the same man using multiple identities to promote GameStop on social media platforms. Gill and a member of his family have confirmed to other media outlets that Gill used the identity of Deep Effing Value on Reddit's Wall Street Bets message board to promote GameStop, and that he used the identity of Roaring Kitty on his YouTube channel and Twitter page to help engineer a short squeeze against the hedge funds that were betting the price of GameStop would fall. Gill was a clean-cut registered rep at Mass Mutual by day and a long-haired, head-banded, fast-talking stock promoter on social media by night, sending out video promotions for GameStop that were filmed at a trading desk he had set up in his basement. I'm not going to read the entire article. They go into in the middle of the article, they go into some detail as to why this might end him up maybe even in prison, because it's illegal under the licensing. He's got all these licenses. Again, he's being promoted as this amateur, but he's got several series, whatever they are, licenses. They go through to give you the numbers. That you need to be a broker, to be a trader. He's got several of these licenses. So the idea that he's some amateur who doesn't know what he's doing is silly. But he's also, as an employee of Mass Mutual, he is prohibited by law from doing what he has done. That is promoting, investment behavior in the way that he's been doing it. He's not supposed to be doing that. And they go into detail as to how this could end him up in jail. I think that is compelling and interesting, but not really the point for me, or for what I'm trying to bring up here, at least. So, that initial section from which I just read, the opening of the article, I think is important primarily because of the media narrative, the mythology around that. But then this next piece that they do talk about that I do want to read from just a little bit is about the public policy issue and how that is being addressed and discussed both as in terms of a media narrative, but also in terms of selfishly my own argument about the myth of black buying power, and how instead of either, whether it be reparations or claims about using a buying power that doesn't exist, that are political activism as it pertains to economic issues should be around public policy. So, as the Mertens or the Martins, that is, say, continuing here, quote, the Senate Banking Committee, House Financial Services Committee, the SEC, and law firms employed by hedge funds that lost billions on the short squeeze in GameStop are looking into what was really going on here. The Senate and House committees have announced that hearings will be held. Was Gill acting alone, or was there an invisible hand urging him or paying him to promote the shares of GameStop? Stock promoters secretly paid major Wall Street firms. Stock promoters secretly paid by major Wall Street firms were exposed in the Senate banking hearings of the early 1930s following the 1929 crash. So they are saying there's precedent for this, and that it's not necessarily to be put on Putin and the Russians. Oh, Lord. Anyway, but also as they continue, while some hedge funds like Melvin Capital have reportedly lost billions in their short squeeze, other major players on Wall Street have made windfalls. And this is sort of the other point that I wanted to raise here this morning, at least very quickly. That again, this can't be seen as a David versus Goliath, because the Goliaths are on all sides and are winning on all sides of the so-called bet. So while some hedge funds like Melvin Capital have reportedly lost billions in the short squeeze, other major players on Wall Street have made windfalls. Reuters is reporting that the giant asset manager BlackRock owned about 9.2 million shares, or roughly 13% stake in GameStop as of December 31st, 2020, and could have made upwards of $2.4 billion on the rise in the stock since the end of December. Gill also frequently mentioned on his YouTube videos Michael Barry's long position in the stock, as well as Ryan Cohen, whose RC Ventures held 13% stake in GameStop. End quote. Michael Burry, by the way, if you watch the movie The Big Short, that's Gareth Bale playing him. Is the guy that predicted the 2008 crash, and because he predicted it, made I think they said in the movie some hundreds of billions of dollars for his hedge fund. But he saw the problem in the financial system, and because this is how they do it, when they see a problem, they make money off of it. So while people lost their houses and their jobs and their lives and their livelihoods, people like Burry and the capital group that he was working for made hundreds of billions of dollars. And he's making money here again. So then lastly, they say, quote, and they end their article by saying this: before there are any more celebrity tweets rooting for the Davids versus the Goliaths, it would be wise to wait for a thorough investigation to reveal what was really going on here, end quote. So for me, again, the point really is, one, the mythology about the potential of a capitalist economy to be good for anybody, and that if people, even retail investors, can get involved, they can overthrow and upset the system, or upset the setup, as my man Peace, Justice, Universal, DJ U-Rock used to say. Another myth is that this guy, Keith Gill, was just some amateur sitting in his basement, when in reality he is a heavily licensed, employee of Mass Mutual, who may be getting Mass Mutual and himself in some severe legal trouble here, and may have been doing it as a paid operator for people who would benefit, as this article shows. There are some from a pump up of the stock. So again, while the small retail investors are saying, yay, I made some money, and a handful of people maybe even paid off some loans or some debts or whatever, the real players are making money. By the way, BlackRock, go back to imixwhatilike.org and to our interview a couple of years ago with Homeboy Sandman, who's now taken on a new name that I'm forgetting, the brilliant MC out of Queens. But he had done an article showing that BlackRock is one of the major investment groups, biggest ones in the country, if not the world. is both a prime player in owning the commercial hip hop, the commercial music that promotes Black pathology, and is a primary owner in the private prison system that benefits financially when that pathology is surveilled, criminalized, and institutionalized. So here's BlackRock again, making money off of what is supposed to be a little guy overthrow of David. And that I also think that this is important. I wanted to point out that it reminds us that there is, within what is we would summarize as a ruling elite, there are competing wings. Not everybody's on the same team, and it doesn't mean that that one hedge fund losing billions is good for us automatically. It might just means that the billions they're losing is being reaccumulated or redistributed into another small group of incredibly wealthy investors who care nothing about the rest of us. Yeah, and that what we're seeing a lot in the commercial media and the punditry class trying to explain away all of this is a frenzy that around trying to redefine the narrative, reset the narrative, blame this on silly people on the internet or Russians or whatever, because some of the punditry class on television are probably connected or representing those who lost some of the money. And then wanting again promote this idea that the little guy can do it, and capitalism is that the mythology that we can upset capitalism. So I just wanted to, I was hoping again to have a much more robust conversation with the authors of those articles. I will look to continue to bring them on for sure, and others who are have more expertise in this than I do. I've reached out to a number of people. By the way, I see your suggestions, I hear them. And I without saying, being inappropriate, maybe I just want to say I've reached out to many more people that have appeared and who will appear. Not everybody wants to. Not everybody wants to come on with me. Not everybody that some of you like and think are great people are, by my estimation, are not in fact great people. And and they may feel the same way about me. So in some cases, we're just not able to work that out, and that's fine too. I'm sure they can find, as I say, my outlet has a small but thoughtful audience, leaving plenty of room for others to find a much bigger audience elsewhere. But I am trying to get as many people on as possible, even those who I, maybe don't have great relationships with, because it's ultimately not about a personal thing, but it's about something broader than that. So, but anyway, but I do see you. I am trying to do that. And, as we continue to expand, maybe we can get more and do more get more on and do more of that. So, all right, let me just quickly see if there are any comments or questions that I could address. You guys are all, always, very funny, humorous, and hateful in the comments and chats. Let's see. My problem, the narrative, poor people fighting back. The financial media is playing. It's when the media yeah, exactly. I mean, this is, again, sort of what I've been trying to say about this whole COVID moment. A lot of what we're seeing is an attempt by those positioned to do so, to again recapture the narratives involved, so that we don't raise questions we shouldn't raise. We don't try to set up alternatives we shouldn't try to set up. And I think this has been part of it as well. Are you funny? That's funny. Anyway, shout out to Brother Ellie, African Rise. I can't wait for our group discussion about some of these films that have come out, that'll be coming up as well. In fact, we have there's a lot coming up. So I haven't even been able to post everything or announce everything yet. And even beyond what hasn't been solidified. So please, again, imixwhatilike.org, at imixwhatilike. Please like, share, and subscribe, and become a member to the channel, and support the expansion that we are building. She thinks she was gaining outside attention relative to a lot of recent labor battles. Do you agree? Yeah, in fact, no. This is a very good point. Thank you, Michael, and thank you for being a supporter of the channel. Again, if you haven't, you really have to go see. Again, I keep saying, there's nothing official. I do feel like I am unofficially a part of this media and black left activist media collect whatever, but you have to be a subscriber and a follower to Luke Mon Nation and see the most recent. I think it's the most recent discussion they had with that Jackie and Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly had. Because Dr. CBS does break down. There's a lot of labor battles with nursing unions, and I can't remember all of them that she was talking about. Where listen, I don't agree with him certainly on a lot of his current analyses and suggestions for what people should be doing in terms of activism and organization, but certainly in terms of his media criticism, Noam Chomsky has been right on for years. And one of the things that he pointed out years ago, I believe it's in Manufacturing Consent, is the question around, where is the labor section in the newspaper? And it was at the time a perfectly, good joke, because there is none. There's a business section. There might be a finance page, or but that's a reporting of the financial elite, of the business elite, of the corporate world, and from their perspective. So you don't get news about working people. You don't get labor struggle history or news. So whether it's Chris Smalls and the Amazon, struggle, or the union struggles that Dr. CBS was talking about, I'm not even necessarily up on, and can't even remember off the top of my head, honestly. There's a lot going on. The strike at the port in what was it, New York, right? I was even looking at that a little bit. I can't remember now, but there's labor strikes and various forms of uprisings happening all the time and all over the country right now that are not getting a lot of attention because of something like this. And maybe even, I'll take that, even not that necessarily Michael meant it this way, but I'll take that as a self-critique. And we need to get more reporting of that here as well. The Hunts Point workers. Thank you, Ricky. Absolutely. There's all kinds of things happening. This is, again, that is sort of my point, that this is the part of this is about resetting the media narrative, and the narrative cannot be something that involves any sustained focus on why working people are striking or protesting. So it's much easier to take up, particularly if you're a commercial media pundit, it's easier to take up the concerns of those who are likely funding you, or in whose class you see yourself, who are in that battle, the competing struggle among the ruling elite, some of whom did lose some money. But of course, the money they lost, it's not necessarily like when you and I lose money. It's either not necessarily their own, or it's bailed out by somebody who comes in. I think that was Stephen Cohen came out and bailed out, was it Melvin Associates? Anyway, one of those who lost billions was basically bailed out. So they'll start right back up, and as the Martins were showing, I was reading their article, the biggest elite are still getting paid, off of this as well. So they're making money, whether absolutely, Hunts Point workers. It's whether it's whether GameStop goes up or down, they're making money. And I think from the point of view people whose livelihoods are involved either working for or working with GameStop, that's sort of the point. People are losing their jobs or losing their livelihoods or losing businesses they put their whole lives into, and this financial elite is making money off of it, whether you live or die, so to speak. So that to me speaks to one of the narratives that looks to be suppressed in this socioeconomic arrangement we have. So anyway, listen, please come back in a couple of hours at 1 p.m. Eastern for our discussion about Black psychology and Black Wall Street with Dr. Sean Utsi. And please come back with all of the other program we have coming up here at I Mix What I Like Live. Please go to imixwhatilike.org and get the new book review from Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows of Jeffrey Perry's Hubert Henry Harrison collected works. So we did the interview with Jeffrey Perry about Hubert Henry Harrison. Now Dr. Burrows has provided us with a full, thorough review of both volumes from Perry, and that's at imixwhatilike.org now as well. So please go check that out. Absolutely, labor is underreported, and unfortunately, people would rather be a boss over actual analysis. That's absolutely right, and that's certainly something that I've looked to deal with the buying power work, and something that I wanted to at least briefly raise here this morning around this issue as well. So absolutely, thank you for that. Again, 1 o'clock, come on back. There's a lot more going on, a lot more being booked, so much more. So stay in tune with the channel. Make sure you got the button clicked and all that. Join everything so you get all the alerts and everything when we go live and when something gets posted. To those of you on IG, thanks for joining me. Please check the other platforms for a better, I think, aesthetic version of it. But I wanted to at least try it this way this time today. So as always, and we will be talking about this very soon. Very soon. Like Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. Thanks, everybody. See you next time here at I Mix What I Like Live.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.